My name is Elodie Crane. The night the phone rang, the shop's smell of oil and rubber was still on my hands. I'd scrubbed them twice, but the grit sits deeper when you bring it home. Liam had fallen asleep on the couch with a book splayed open like a little tent over his chest, paper mountain rising and falling with his breath. Rebecca was in my kitchen, claiming my coffee and my chair, scrolling with the concentration of someone who works very hard at not working. 3 months earlier, she'd shown up at my door with a duffel bag, a tearful half smile, and the same story as always. It's just until I'm back on my feet. She promised to help. Laundry, dishes, keeping an eye on Liam during my late shifts. For a while, she played the part. Sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, a wiped counter, a selfie with Liam at the park, his tongue purple from a popsicle. It was almost enough to make me forget every time, just until had stretched into, of course you can cover it. The ask started small. Just a bit for groceries, Elle. Only the groceries never arrived. Then it was bus fare, then cash is easier, then a little more and a little more. I worked longer hours and told myself a story that sounded generous in the retelling. Family helps family. Liam is 5. Love is a roof and a lock and a light that works when he flips the switch. That's when my phone lit up with a number I didn't know. I almost let it die on the counter, but something in me answered. Ms. Crane? A woman's voice, professional but warm. This is Children's Services. We've received a report about your son, Liam. A ridge grew in my throat. He's home, I said, staring at the couch. The book was there. The blanket was there. The boy was not. Witnesses observed a woman begging with him in the city center, she continued. The name given was Rebecca. I dropped the dishcloth. My sister wouldn't. She had him hold a cup, the woman said softly. People gave money. We have multiple reports. For Liam's safety, he's been placed in temporary custody while we complete our assessment. My keys were somehow in my hand. The room blurred. Rebecca appeared in the doorway, phone still in her palm. Where is he? My voice came out a sound lower than words. Out, she said, so casually I almost believed I'd misheard the call. We went to town. He loved the bus. My son is with Children's Services. The color drained from her face, then returned in a different shape. Deflection. Wow, she said, a laugh with no humor in it. People are dramatic. What did you do? Relax, Elle. She brushed past me to the sink, rinsed a glass, set it in a drying rack she never uses. Nothing happened. I told him it was a game. Her phone pinged. I glimpsed the lock screen. A notification from a name she'd once mentioned like a rumor. Ray owes me. Below it, a green banner. Deposit received. For what? I'm going to Children's Services, I said. Now. She watched me grab my jacket, watched my hands shake, watched me realize the blanket had been carefully arranged on the couch to look like a sleeping child. I took care of him, she said. You never stop working long enough to notice. I left without answering. The car ride was a slideshow of wrong. Liam on a curb somewhere, shoulder to shoulder with her. Liam holding out a paper cup like an offering he couldn't name. My son learning a lesson I never wanted near his bones, that other people's pity is currency. The Children's Services office was colder than January. They sat me with a social worker named Tamsin, who had kind eyes that didn't blink faster just because I was drowning. We need you to listen, she said. Then we'll talk next steps. I listened. It was worse than the call. It wasn't once. It had been weeks. The busier the street, the better. The shopping district. Outside schools at pickup time. Parents are soft, yeah, a witness said Rebecca told Liam, and I flinched as if I'd heard it firsthand. She dressed herself down and spoke loudly about being a single mother. Sometimes she refused food. Cash helps more. But ate free in a restaurant that believed the lie. Once a nurse came out of a hospital and asked if they needed help. We're fine, Rebecca said, dragging him away by the wrist before the kindness could turn into anything with a name. People called it in because something felt wrong. He looks clean, one said, like he has a home. A charity worker followed them once, hoping to offer a shelter voucher. Rebecca noticed the tail and vanished into a side street. The worker reported Liam crying, unsure whether he was allowed to ask to go home. When Tamsin said, "We've placed him with a short-term carer," I nodded like a good student and kept my breath in one piece. My hands were still, my teeth weren't. "We'll be assessing everything," she said. "Home environment, your work hours, Safety plans. We also need to understand how Rebecca had access. She lives with us, I said, tasting the shame in the admission. She said she'd help. She used his innocence, Tamsin said, and that was the sentence I couldn't bear because it made everything true at once. I signed forms. I stared at the corner of the desk where a pen had etched little anxious spirals into the laminate. I answered questions. Who collects Liam from school? Where the spare key is kept? Whether I've ever left him with Rebecca overnight? No, no, no. I didn't have to say I was a fool. The room already knew. What happens now? I asked. We continue the investigation, she said. You'll have supervised contact with Liam while we complete our checks. If we're satisfied with the safety plan, he can come home, but we have to be sure. She folded her hands. You need to hear the part that's harder to hear. I thought I'd already heard that part. This wasn't one complaint, she said gently. We opened a file 2 weeks ago. There are multiple incidents. In one, your sister encouraged Liam to call her mommy to pass a test of suspicion. He did it to please her. He's 5. The adult is responsible. The breath left me. Not because I believed it, but because Liam would. He'd say any word to make a grown-up proud. I nodded enough times to mean I was done. Tamsin stood. There's more to review, she said. We'll schedule your contact. Tonight, go home. Lock your door. Do not allow Rebecca to be alone with Liam again. Her eyes softened. We've seen recovery. It starts with choices that feel like breaking. Outside, the city had forgotten my emergency. Lights kept their appointments with the dark. I walked to the car in a borrowed body, held together by a list. Call my manager. Make a safety plan. Tell Rebecca she can never be alone with him again. Check the doors twice. Check them a third time. I sat in the driver's seat and saw the empty booster in the rear view and pressed my forehead to the wheel and made a sound I would not have recognized if I weren't the one making it. Home smelled wrong. Rebecca had made popcorn and left half of it on the counter like a still life of selfishness. So, she said. So you don't live here anymore, I said. She scoffed. Don't be dramatic. Liam's fine. No one got hurt. You asked him to hold a cup. And people gave, she said, as if that proved a point. Relax. It's not like we stole. You stole his safety, I said, and you stole my home. She rolled her eyes. You work all the time. Someone needed to look after him. Looking after him doesn't mean making him bait. For a heartbeat, something like shame flickered. Then she shrugged it off like a cardigan. Elle, I'm hungry. Do you want anything from... Pack, I said. She laughed. Where am I supposed to go? Then she saw my face and stopped. You're serious. You took my son into the street and taught him to beg, I said, every word a match. Children's Services has a file. This wasn't once. You used him. People are so soft, she muttered, but she'd lost the room, and we both knew it. She lifted her chin. You'll regret this. I already do, I said. She slammed the door. The flat exhaled. I didn't. Not yet. The couch looked smaller without a boy pretending to be a mountain. I sat in the quiet and listened to the fridge hum and the pipes knock like distant footsteps and the siren in my chest that wouldn't shut off until I saw him. I opened the Notes app and started a list titled, What They'll Ask, Locks, Routines, Emergency Contacts, Who Picks Up from School, Proof of Hours, Proof of Love. Underneath it, What I'll Ask, Supervised Visits, How Long, What to Bring, His Dinosaur, the little blue car that always finds its way under the radiator. The phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We're reviewing additional incidents involving your sister. Please be available tomorrow at 10. Tamsin again. Additional incidents. The phrase felt like a hallway of doors, each one opening into a worse room. I typed a reply. I'll be there. Then I added, without sending it, please tell him I'm coming. Please tell him I'm not the one who left. I didn't sleep. I watched the door. I watched the dark. I rehearsed sentences for strangers because strangers now held the keys to my son. And I promised the quiet that when he came home, the word home would mean something with walls no one could walk through. Morning arrived without apology. I tied my hair back, scrubbed my hands a third time, and practiced saying, I understand in a voice that didn't crack. On my way out, I noticed a small thing I'd missed the night before. Liam's stuffed dinosaur propped in the hallway, as if someone had thought to pack it and then change their mind. I held it to my chest like a question. In the car, I checked the rear view again. Still empty. I'm coming, I said to no one who could hear me, and drove toward the part of the story I hadn't yet survived. The office at Children's Services smelled faintly of copier ink and stale coffee. The walls were lined with posters about resilience and safe homes, slogans that made my throat ache. Tamsin greeted me with the same measured calm, but there was a new heaviness in her eyes, like she had read too many reports in too few days. "Elodie, thank you for coming," she said. "I need you to prepare yourself. We've uncovered more incidents involving Rebecca. Some are deeply concerning." I braced myself, though nothing could have braced me enough. She opened a folder, thick with printouts, and began to read. It wasn't just one or two times. She's been taking Liam into the city for weeks, always the busiest spots: shopping centers, the park, outside schools. She played the part of a desperate mother. Sometimes she refused food people offered, insisting only on money. I tried to picture it, but every image broke down into the same unbearable thought. Liam holding out his little hand, not understanding why strangers avoided his eyes. Tamsin's voice softened. In one case, a restaurant gave them free meals after she claimed Liam hadn't eaten for days. Staff reported that while your son ate quietly, Rebecca was laughing with them, asking for extra sides. I pressed my palm to my stomach to keep it from turning. There was also an incident outside the hospital. She sat him on the curb, told people he needed money for medical bills. A nurse came out to help. Rebecca dragged him away before the nurse could intervene. Each example was like a hammer driving the same nail deeper into me. But then Tamsin said the thing that knocked the air clean out of my lungs. She tried to pawn his toys. Not just toys, Elodie. The stuffed dinosaur he sleeps with every night. The remote control car he got for his last birthday. The shopkeeper reported that Liam begged her not to sell them. He called her mommy in front of the clerk. She let him do it to make the act more convincing. "Stop," I whispered, but she couldn't. She had to finish. The owner refused and later filed a police report. It's in the record now. I wiped at my face, surprised to find tears already there. "And there's more," she said carefully. She stood before a church congregation claiming Liam had a rare disease, took money from their charity fund. Hundreds of dollars. She refused medical help when someone offered to arrange it, saying she needed immediate cash. The fluorescent lights above buzzed like hornets. She also attempted to enroll him in a temporary childcare scheme under her name, listing herself as his mother. Claimed she needed care so she could work. In reality, she wanted more free time to continue her activities. By then I was shaking. My nails dug crescents into my palms. "We understand you didn't know," Tamsin said, meeting my eyes. "But from our perspective, allowing her unsupervised access raises questions about judgment. For now, Liam will remain in temporary care until we can guarantee his safety." Her words rang louder than the buzz of the lights. They didn't trust me. It didn't matter that I'd worked double shifts to keep the roof steady. In their eyes, I had opened the door to danger and then gone to work while it lived in my house. When I got home that night, Rebecca was sprawled on the sofa with a half-empty bag of crisps, scrolling her phone as if the world hadn't caught fire. "You're insane," I said before I even sat down. "You told people my son was sick. You tried to sell his toys. You made him call you his mother." She didn't even look up. "Relax. He wasn't hurt." "Not hurt?" My voice cracked like glass. "You dragged him into the street. You let strangers pity him for your profit. You shattered his trust in the people who were supposed to protect him." Finally, she looked at me, her eyes hard. "And you're perfect. Always working, leaving him behind." At least I was there. The fury that had been building for weeks spilled out. "You weren't there for him. You were there for yourself. You used him, Becca. You used my son to get money. And now he's gone. He's not coming home because of you." She stood, arms crossed. "I'm not going anywhere. I don't have anywhere else." "You're leaving," I said, my voice like iron. "You're not staying here. Not after this." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. But before she did, she spat one last warning. "You're going to regret this." The flat fell silent, but it wasn't peace. It was the hollow silence after a bomb, dust still settling in the air. I sat down and buried my face in my hands. Liam's shoes were still by the door, his toys scattered on the floor, but the air felt emptied of him. I thought of his dinosaur, the way he clutched it even in sleep. I thought of his small voice saying "mommy" to someone else. The next morning, I gathered every document I had: birth certificate, school enrollment, medical records, photos of birthdays, and scraped knees and summer swims. I took them to the guardianship office and spread them across the desk like a shield. "He's mine," I said. "I can protect him. This will never happen again." The woman behind the desk looked at me with professional sorrow. "We'll need to complete the investigation first. Until then, Liam remains in temporary care." It felt like a punch to the gut. Proof wasn't enough. Love wasn't enough. Not yet. I walked out of the office into a world that looked the same but no longer felt like it belonged to me. My son was out there somewhere, maybe clutching his dinosaur, maybe asking when I was coming. And all I could do was wait. 4 days later, the phone rang again. This time it wasn't Tamsin, it was the police. "Ms. Crane," the officer said, his tone clipped but not unkind. "We've detained your sister Rebecca outside a supermarket. She was attempting to beg with another woman's child. When questioned, she gave us your name." The world spun. "She what?" "She claims you were involved in her activities, that you were aware of what she was doing, even helped her financially." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "That's a lie. She's dragging me down with her." "That may be," he said, "but we still need to investigate. You'll need to provide your side." After I hung up, I sat in silence, staring at the blank wall. My own sister, after everything, was now trying to pin her crimes on me. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the flat sounded like footsteps of accusation. I imagined Liam, somewhere else, maybe being asked if his mother helped his aunt. What would he say? What had she told him to say? The next morning, I called a solicitor. I laid out everything: the money requests, the scams, the reports, the pawning attempt, the hospital incident, the church lies, the false enrollment. He listened, took notes, then leaned back in his chair. "As long as you have proof of your work hours, documents showing you provided for Liam, and evidence that you contacted Children's Services, you should be fine," he said. "But Rebecca's lies will complicate the custody case. You'll need to be meticulous." Meticulous, that word became my lifeline. I tore through drawers and cupboards, pulling out every bill I'd paid, every photo of me and Liam, every text from Rebecca asking for just a bit more. I built a ledger of truth to hold against her ledger of lies. But Rebecca wasn't finished. 2 days later, another envelope arrived in my letterbox. Inside was a utility bill with my name on it, but for an address I'd never lived at. I realized what she had done: opened accounts in my name to support her scams. My heart raced as I dialed the number on the bill. "I never authorized this," I told the company. "It's fraud." They promised to investigate, but I knew what it meant. More paperwork, more suspicion, another stain I'd have to scrub from my name. That evening, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Rebecca stood there as if she hadn't burned everything between us. Her clothes were wrinkled, her hair unkempt, but her eyes were still sharp. "I need a place to stay," she said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You've got to be joking." My voice was ice. "You used my son, you lied to the police, you dragged my name through the mud, and now you think you can walk back in here?" She crossed her arms. "I said I was sorry. I screwed up. But you're my sister. Family sticks together." I nearly laughed. "You think an apology fixes this? You told the police I was involved. Do you understand what that means for me? For Liam?" She looked away, muttering, "I didn't mean for it to get that bad. I was desperate." "No," I said. "You were selfish." I stepped back, ready to close the door, but then she leaned forward, her voice low and venomous. "If I go down, Elodie, I'm taking you with me." The words froze me. In that moment, I realized she wasn't just reckless. She was dangerous. I shut the door in her face, locked it, and slid to the floor, shaking. The next morning, I went to the police myself. I told them everything: how she'd taken Liam, the scams, the false accounts, the lies about me. I filed a formal complaint. It wasn't easy. A part of me still remembered the sister who shared a bedroom with me as children, who once held my hand when I was scared of the dark. But that girl was gone. In her place was someone who would sacrifice her own nephew and betray her own blood to save herself. A few days later, the police called back. "We've gathered more evidence against Rebecca. We'll be pressing charges." For the first time in weeks, I felt something like relief. But Rebecca wasn't done with me yet. That evening, she came again. This time she was crying, tears streaking her cheeks, voice trembling. "Please, Elle," she begged. "Drop the charges. I've learned my lesson. I'll leave town. I swear. I'll never bother you again. Just don't let them put me away." For a moment, I almost faltered. She looked so broken, so small. A piece of me wanted to believe her. But then I thought of Liam, his wide eyes, his quiet voice, his trust. I thought of him being told to beg, to call her mommy, to watch as she tried to sell his dinosaur. I thought of the fear in his heart, a fear no 5-year-old should carry. "No," I said, my voice steady. "I can't drop it. Not after what you did to him, to me." She sobbed harder. "Please, I'll do anything." "Then take responsibility," I said. Admit what you've done. Apologize to the people you hurt. Maybe then they'll show leniency." Her tears slowed. She nodded, half reluctant, half resigned. In that moment, I realized something chilling. Even now, even broken, she wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry she'd been caught. Rebecca surprised me. A week after the police pressed charges, I got a call from Tamsin at Children's Services. Her tone was different, lighter, almost cautious. "Elodie, you should know. Your sister has started cooperating. She's admitted to several scams. She's even apologized in writing to some of the people she defrauded." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to laugh. Another part wanted to cry. "She's facing community service and a fine," Tamsin continued, "not prison. The court's taking her cooperation into account." It wasn't the justice I'd imagined, but it was something. Later that day, Rebecca showed up at my door again. This time, she didn't storm or threaten. She stood there quietly, her shoulders slumped, eyes red, like someone who had finally run out of masks. "I did what you asked," she said softly. "I told them everything. I apologized. I even spoke to that restaurant manager, the one I lied to about Liam being hungry. He wouldn't look at me, but I said I was sorry." Her voice cracked on the last word. I leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. "And why are you telling me this?" "Because," she whispered, "I don't know who else to tell." I should have slammed the door, but instead I let her words hang there, heavy and hollow. "I'm not here to fix you," I said finally, "and I can't forget what you did. But maybe, for Liam's sake, you needed to face what you are." Her eyes filled with fresh tears. "Do you hate me?" I thought about the years of chaos, the lies, the way she'd twisted love into a weapon. "No," I said quietly. "But I don't trust you, and I don't think I ever will again." She nodded as if she already knew that was the only answer possible. Then she walked away without another word. Days later, Children's Services called me in. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might split. Tamsin greeted me with a smile this time. "Elodie, we've completed the investigation. You've provided documentation. You've set clear boundaries, and Liam has told us he feels safe with you. We're approving his return home." The relief that washed over me nearly knocked me off my feet. When they brought him into the room, he ran straight into my arms, his little dinosaur clutched tightly in one hand. I buried my face in his hair and promised him, silently and out loud, that I would never let anything like this happen again. Back home, the flat looked different. His shoes by the door weren't just reminders of absence anymore. They were proof of return. His toys scattered on the floor were no longer evidence of loss, but signs of life. That night, after he'd fallen asleep, I sat beside his bed and watched him breathe. He stirred once, clutching the dinosaur tighter, and whispered in his sleep, "Mommy." This time, it was for me. Rebecca moved to another town not long after. Occasionally, she sends a text. Short, clipped apologies. Sometimes just a single word. "Sorry." I don't reply. Not because I want to punish her, but because silence is the only boundary I can trust. I've learned something through all this. Family can wound deeper than anyone else because they know exactly where the weak spots are. But family can't be an excuse for destruction. Protecting Liam meant choosing him over blood ties. It meant learning that love sometimes looks like cutting the cord before it strangles you. I don't know if Rebecca will ever change, but I know this. Liam is safe. He's home. And for now, that's enough.